Yo, brother, it's time for us to start talking the real, man. We've been sugarcoating too much. We've got to start calling everything out for what it is.
Hey guys, I'm here with my S22 and I'm about to perform a major upgrade to the suspension system, and all for about 20 bucks and maybe a couple hours of your time. This tip or set of tips comes to you from Dave Yu, a local rider in Southern California. You've heard me mention Dave on some of my previous videos. And thanks again, Dave, for your fantastic insights in how to upgrade the S22 suspension. Now, there's going to be two parts to the suspension upgrade. One is going to be replacing some of the hardware for the rear linkages. Very simple, and that's where the $20 comes in. And the other update is going to be a reworking of the slider mechanism inside, and it's not going to involve any 3D printed parts or CNC sliders, which is all the rage currently. Here is my master after I just completed a major upgrade to its suspension system, and notice how soft it feels with very little downward pressure on my arms. Now here is my S22 before I do any work on it. The same amount of pressure that I was applying to the master. Look at that huge amount of soft travel you're seeing. You have to really apply pressure to get it to barely move. Not very good, right? Let's address the simplest fix first, and that has to do with the hardware for these rear linkages that hold the shock in place. For really unknown reasons, KingSong has used the incorrectly sized pins for the rear and the top that hold this shock in place. And let me show you more. So I'm going to undo the bolt. Now when you undo these, so half of this hardware is this bolt screw, and the other side is a long pin threaded on this side and has a cap on the other side. When you're loosening any of this hardware, make sure you undo this part. Don't twist and turn this side, because it can grind and be really tough to turn, and you can potentially damage your hardware. All right, now let me pull the camera in so you can look down to see what I'm seeing. Okay, you can see that the end of this shaft, and let me show you that this is what we're looking at. This is threaded from this side up, and the top of this is short, from let's say about 5 millimeters short of the exit hole. Therefore, when you tighten down these two bolts, it's compressing these two arms together and making basically just adding a lot of friction on the shock, which keeps it from moving freely as the shock is moving up and down. And we'll see more about this as I further take it apart. All right, now let's remove this pin, and I'm going to use a 13/64 transfer punch to do this. Again, here is what we're going to be pushing out, and we don't want to damage the threads or this part of the shaft. So this transfer punch fits inside there perfectly like that. drop this down there. Take my hammer. And it is out. Nice and simple. Now, this is super stiff. It should be floppy. It should be loose. And that's because the other side, again, they used the wrong hardware. It's too short. So the same thing that's happening on this side where it's stiff is happening on this side. It's stiff. So this whole shock is really held in there tightly. And that's really reducing the freedom of movement for this guy. So let's take off the other side. Oops. And again, if you look down here, you'll see that it's about, I don't know, 1/4 inch, 5 millimeters too short. These are the two shafts that I just removed from the S22 from the factory. Notice that they are both the same size. This is a hardware kit you're going to be buying from AliExpress. It's about $20 shipped. Took me about a week and a half to receive them. There are 3 different part numbers, but they usually ship them together in the same container. 2 new shafts and a bag of nylon washers. Notice these 2 shafts are not the same length. This is 75 millimeters and this is 80 millimeters. Now let's compare. So this is a short one that's going to be for the bottom linkage compared to the stock shaft from KingSong. Look how short this KingSong one is. And now this is the correct linkage for the top, correct shaft for the top linkage. Look how much shorter the stock pin is. It's really bizarre that KingSong didn't use the correct hardware. Why not just buy the correct hardware or have it manufactured to the correct specifications? All right, let's install this, the new stuff. All right, now the top shaft, the 80 millimeter one, is just slightly too long actually, and that's the purpose of this single washer. So go like this and up through here like this. Now this nylon washer is just slightly too large to fit in here, so I'm just going to take some sandpaper and reduce the diameter. Now you can probably see, you can see now that this shaft is protruding above the linkage hardware. So now when we tighten down, this will remain loose. Put some Loctite on this. And by the way, there was no Loctite on the original one that I took out. There, tight. And look how floppy this is now, which is the way it should be. Beautiful. Now we'll do the same on the other side. Now this one does not need a washer, it's close enough. More Loctite. So I've tightened down now with the Loctite, and the bolt is loose in here, which is another good indication that you don't have any binding going on. And that is part one complete. All right, part two, the sliders. Now to work on the sliders, I'm going to have to remove the motor, and because the sliders are attached to the motor. The motor is held into the shell with only 2 bolts up here. So that's simple. But before I can slide all that out, I'm going to have to disconnect all the cabling. And I'm going to choose to do that by disconnecting the cabling and just removing the control board and putting it to the side. So I will start that now, with first removing the seat. The red plastic is held on with these 2 screws. Now they were underneath the Velcro. I just cut holes in the Velcro to get access to these 2 screws. So I'm going to have to remove all the Velcro. All right, well, I don't think I needed to take this top part off, but Dave told me something disturbing when he took his fully apart, in that he found a lot of metal shavings because they use self-tapping screws in the metal on the back side of this a lot of places. And anyway, that was disturbing, so I thought I would open it up, and I'm seeing some disturbing things in here too. So right around here near this capacitor, I'm going to zoom in and show you a nice big chunk of metal shaving just sitting there, and it looks like it's loose too. Okay, do you see this little sliver of something which looks like a piece of metal to my eye? And it's loose. Imagine that floating around and touching, shorting out some components on the top. All right, well, the best I could, I looked around with this loop. This is only about a 3x. I think Dave said he used a 10x magnifier. And most of the shavings that he saw were on the bottom side. But with this, I found 4 other little bits. They were smaller than what I showed you, but the piece I showed you was definitely big enough to short across some of those IC components. And depending on what they were doing when you're writing, that could be bad. I used a magnet to confirm that it was conductive. It gave me the impression that it was bits of solder, flakes of solder. But not encouraging. Anyway, I think I'll probably put the cover on temporarily anyway, and then continue taking this apart and looking on the bottom side. I put the cover back on the top section for now, and I'm removing the 8 bolts that hold the control board module to the wheel. I use a narrow needle nose plier to squeeze that tab on the hall sensor cable so I can remove it. That's that. I can put this aside for safekeeping. Time to remove the 2 bolts that hold the motor in the shell. And it's important that this side is the long shaft, and this is the small bolt that screws into it. Don't untighten this side, otherwise you'll put a lot of stress on that area and potentially mess up the head. Again, I'm using one of these transfer punches. All right, now that I have the motor pulled out of the shell and the sliders exposed, I can give you an overview of Dave's fix. And that is to essentially turn this into a dry, no lubrication slider system, keeping the existing slider mechanism, these plastic pieces. You saw how difficult it was for me to pull this out. What Dave tells me, and I can believe it, is after you do what I'm about to do with this slides in and out very easily, and that's what you want. So I'm going to be cleaning all the gunk out of here. I'm going to use chemicals, so there's zero trace of any kind of lubricant, grease or sticky grease. This is kind of like a sticky grease, whatever they use. And then these bits, okay, well, I'm just going to see if I can tear that off. The other one already broke off, and I don't have a ton of miles on this. I'm going to keep these, but I'm going to basically semi-permanently mount them at the top of the channels so they can just act as a safeguard bumper, I guess, in case the shock mechanism fails, and keep all this from moving up and into the control board area. Other than that, think about it. Attached to this just adds another it's a rubber. It's not a hard plastic, so lots of friction added by these 4 of these being pulled up and down as this mechanism is moving. So I'm going to clean everything up. I'm going to modify the sliders just a little bit. I'll show you that, and then put it back together and see how it goes. All right, to facilitate cleaning of these plastic sliders, I'm just going to remove them all. Hopefully they're removable. They're on there tight, which is good. Really tight. Ah. All right, well, it's the next day. I took a break last night. I completed one half of the wheel. Now I've flipped everything over. I'm going to do this part. And here I'll show you the details of how I'm going to be cleaning this mess up. Probably this whole operation, I might have mentioned, only takes $20 with parts and a couple hours worth of work. It's probably maybe maybe double that time. It's definitely a process. Mostly it's just cleaning, but you got to be really thorough in this cleaning. You got to get everything off, and they use this again. It's a horrible sticky grease. When you take all this out, you just see how bad it is. I hope you guys who are doing the CNC sliders or whatever, that you're really cleaning all these channels out. It takes a lot of time, and highly recommend using gloves, because again, this grease dirt will get pretty messy. So you're going to go through probably a handful of these. All right, I already showed you in a previous video me removing these plastic sliders. Ultimately, using a mallet and a little piece of wood as a wedge, tapping it is useful for removing them and putting them back on too, actually. So I don't need to show you that, but I'm going to show you again how I'm going to deal with these plastic or rubber bumper, whatever they are. Okay, I'm just going to kind of twist this off. It's connected with a little screw. It's easy to take that screw off if you just break that rubber off, and you can actually just unscrew it with your fingers. See, am I going the right way? Nope, I'm going the wrong way. Yeah, they didn't, at least on my wheel, they didn't use any kind of a Loctite. And that's why one of them came off my wheel and the screw wasn't even in there anymore. So some places they use Loctite and some places they don't. It's a long screw. There you go. Just a little machine screw, and you can throw that away. And then we're just gonna clean these guys off really good. Cleaning is pretty simple. You just want to be thorough, and I've experimented with mineral spirits, which works great. Just takes longer to dry, a little more caustic, I suppose. But ultimately, isopropyl alcohol works. Any 70, 90 proof. Been working good for me. Just put a liberal amount on and wipe, and go through lots of, just keep doing it until it's all the gunk is cleaned out of here. Even though this later is not going to be moving at all in the channel, it's just going to be sitting up at the top. You're going to have to slide it through the channel to get it up to the top. So you wouldn't want any grease that's on here to be rubbed off on that channel that you're going to be cleaning so thoroughly. Okay, nice and clean. And last thing I'm going to do is just cut off this stub. Probably don't really have to, but it's certainly not needed anymore. There. These are ready to reinstall once we get the channels cleaned out. Your best bet is to use a liberal amount of this alcohol. Just soak these things. Get all this stuff off. Okay, this is how they should look when all nice and clean, no garbage on them. Now the next step, some of you may not want to do, but Dave did it and it makes sense to me, so I'm going to sand off these bevels, 45-degree bevels, because they're an area that potentially can collect dust. You can see dust and dirt can over time get wedged between that little area between this and the channel. And dirt means friction, and we don't want friction. And here is the final result with that chamfer removed. I had to hand sand a little bit to take off the rough edges, but no longer collecting the dirt. All right, time to clean out the channel. And what I'm doing is using one of these paper towels, basically 2 of those small sections, if you happen to buy those type. I'm going to fold this up like so. So it's a pretty thick piece. It'll just barely fit in there. Now I'm going to saturate this with lacquer thinner. That is the quickest solvent that I've found for doing this. And you're not going to damage the metal. Chemicals not going to hurt it. Okay, I've saturated this with lacquer thinner, cleaner, and jam it in here. Work it back and forth. And I'm probably going to I'll go through a few paper towels like this. See all that stuff that's, you're basically going to keep doing this. Flip it over. And keep doing this until it comes out clean. Don't skimp. Just keep working at it. Okay, next paper towel up. Okay, the channels have been cleaned out multiple times. No dirt shows up on the solvent saturated rags when I put them in there. So let's put this in here. Now, see how I'm struggling to get this in here? That's because this rubber gasket on the bottom of the battery case is larger than the case, so it's squishing out. What I'm going to do is cut that away, because that's going to make your life a lot easier when you put this back together. The gasket that's squished out is not doing anything, so there's no problem cutting it away. Still something. there. So ease of this slides now. So we want to cut that away, and while I'm here, let's see if I can find it. You're also going to want to cut, just use a flat razor blade and cut the excess gasket that's sticking out here. Because again, this just gets in the way when you're reinstalling the wheel. Okay, time to reinstall the stopper. I'm just going to slide it up to the top. And again, if I see this slipping down in the future, I'll just put a dab of silicone right around here just to keep it from moving, but I don't think it's going to really get in the way. Time to reinstall plastic parts here. Gentle taps with a mallet. And by the way, these were all loose when I removed them. So tighten them down. Check all your screws while you're at it. Whew! That was a struggle. Sorry I didn't film it. I don't feel like taking this apart to film it again, but I was trying to slide it in while everything was on its side. And that wasn't going very smoothly. So I took off my false top on my workmate, put it in, and it slid down. Not too much great difficulty. So now it's, well, this isn't the greatest demonstration of sliding, but it's in the tracks. So let me put it on the side and start putting it together a little bit and see how it feels. Okay, guys. Well, I put it all the way back together. Went together really quick. And let's see if you remember how little it moved before. Not putting a lot of pressure on it. Feels nice and smooth. And there's no gunk in there, which from what Dave tells me, even if you get a little dirt in the channels, just jump up and down a few times and it all just empties out. So it still doesn't feel as comfy smooth as my recent master suspension upgrade, but it's definitely smoother than it was, for sure. And let's take it for a test ride. guys. Well, I've been riding around the hills of Palos Verdes, enjoying the trails. Right now the Pacific Ocean is behind me. Beautiful day in Southern California. Broken record, I know. I actually dressed a little too warm this morning. So I'm really enjoying the new suspension. New meaning just perhaps made like it should have been. Now you probably heard in the footage before this squeaking. It's definitely a little bit more squeakier than it was before. I'm not sure if it was squeaky before. And no doubt because there's no lubrication in there, but it feels great. I mean, it's definitely moving. See that section, that little bit of footage I showed you when I was walking the wheel over some bumps. You could see the shock easily moving, which is just nice indication that there's no friction in the system. So I'm loving it, and it's just nice to know that it's going to stay this way. It's not going to get mucked up. All that stuff you saw me remove from the suspension was after about 250 miles. I don't have a lot of miles on this wheel. So 250 miles and all that gunk was in the suspension system. And it, you know, barely moved. It moved when you were hit big bumps, but now it's a lot more subtle. Now, it's definitely not the Master. I wish it was, because I'm more into the soft ride than a more firm ride. This is still a firm ride. Now I need to try. I know Roger's putting a CNC. He's got two S22s. He's putting a CNC slider set in and a printed slider set in. So hopefully I'll get the chance to ride those just a little bit. But I just have a feeling no matter what you do with the geometry of the suspension on this wheel, it's going to be a firmer ride than what I'm experiencing with the Master. But that's good. Variety, right? That's why I have this and I have the Master. Look, it's up to you if you want to go through this effort to improve the suspension, but for $20, you're going to get a much stronger linkage system in the back if you do any jumps, because as it is right now, there's only those bolts only partially supported in the linkages. So for $20, a few hours of your work, you'll get your suspension back, because no matter what, your wheel, your S22 is going to be tough, stiff, if you don't do anything. All right, guys, I hope this was useful to you, and until next time, safe riding.